That is not a very fair thing to ask of a human being. Maybe if you were a computer and you're always there, because you have an algorithm to always make sure that you're there regardless of what is going on around you. Let's talk about the relationship between your stop loss and your risk percentage. So the first thing I want to really touch on is when you don't use a stop loss, realistically, and I want you to stop and think about this, your stop loss is in direct correlation with your risk percentage. So when you don't use a stop loss, technically speaking, your risk is open. Now, people will say things like they don't use a stop loss, but they're using 1% risk. How do you know that? So let me make something clear. Your stop loss, your risk percentage, and your lot size all correlate, right? They have relations within each other, right? They all have to relate. So if you're using let's just say you're using one standard lot, right? You're using one standard lot, assuming this is the correct lot size for your account, all right? You're using one standard lot and you have no stop loss. Realistically, dependent on how far price goes from it's at a loss, how far price goes from where you are right now, right? That could be 1%, it could be 2%, it could be 3%, it could be 10%. The reason why we use a stop loss is not just to take us out of the trade when we have been proven wrong, but it is also to control the risk, right? So let me show you a few things here. So this is gold, right? And this is not a trade that I took, but I want you to take, we're just using this as an example. So let's assume this is a 10 pip stop loss and it went 200 pips in my favor in less than a day. So right off the bat, this is a 1 to 20 risk reward. Meaning, if I risked 1% here and it went in my favor, I will be rewarded with 20% return. All right? Now, if I risked 0.5% here, I would be rewarded with 10% return. If I risked 0.25% up here, I would be rewarded with 5% return. Now, let us assume you don't have a stop loss at all, right? How do you know when it has gotten to 1% risk? When it gets 10 pips? When it gets to 20 pips? Is it in correlation with your lot size? Is your lot size even the correct lot size for the account? Is the lot size even the correct lot size for the account in relation to what you are saying is your mental stop? And I'll tell you something, the reason why I don't like a mental stop is because the caveat is right in the word, mental. We know that Forex is a mental thing, right? It's a psychological thing, right? And we know that trading is a psychological thing. And to use a mental stop loss insinuates that you are always going to be in direct and absolute control of your mind. And that is not realistic to ask of a human being, is it? Because what it says is that if you take this trade without any stop loss, right? Let's just say you take this trade without any stop loss. So you have let's just say you are using a $10,000 account, right? So you take this trade using one standard lot, right? No stop loss. Okay, cool. So it goes in your favor, right? And it goes in your favor 20 times. Well, we can't even say 20 times your risk because your risk is open. So you see the caveat there. That's the first one. The second one is, how do you know how far it goes against you? What is 1%? Because are you even using this one standard in relation to that 1%? Right? Because is it gonna be 10 pips? Is it gonna be 20 pips? How do you know when you're gonna take it out? All right? Now let me show you the other caveat with that. Let us assume that you do work it out such that you're going to stop yourself out mentally when it hits 1% of this. So this one standard lot, it goes, let's just say it goes however many pips against you, and it equals 1% of this, which would be $100. So in this case, it will be 10 pips against you to equal $100, right? Cool. But like I said, that insinuates that you'll always be there mentally. If you have children and they are playing in the house or whatever, and they happen to throw down something, they throw down a vase, they break a table, they bounce their head, something, and you have to now go attend to them, but you still have the trade open, and it's going against you. You're not there mentally, are you? And before you know it, the trade has gone significantly against you, and there's nothing you could do about it but watch in despair as goal eats your account. What about if you have a cat? The cat walks across the keyboard and you have, let's just say, you're drinking coffee by your workstation, and cat throws down this coffee and it's all over your keyboard, all over your work desk. You think you have time now to close the trade? You have to clean up, because now your computer, your software, your hardware is at risk of being damaged because of coffee everywhere, right? You think you're going to be there mentally to close the trade if it's going against you? No, you're not. So the problem that I realize that a lot of traders have is they say things without even understanding the gravity of what it is they're saying. So you cannot use a mental stop loss and hope to always be there mentally. Even if you're there physically, doesn't mean you're there mentally. You're in front of the workstation, but the cat throw down the thing. The cat throw down the coffee on your keyboard. How are you going to function now? You think now. I want you to really think about how you will react if you have a cat and it throws down coffee on your keyboard. What would you do? You think you have time to close a trade? No, you don't. You want to secure the keyboard and make sure nothing happens, you don't fry the circuits of the keyboard. You understand? If it is you have kids while playing and they bounce their head, they end up cutting themselves, something, you will not always be there mentally, my friends. And that is the purpose of the stop loss. I say it all the time. It is a prenuptial agreement, all right, between you and the market. That is something that if you don't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you again. Now, here's the thing. You can adjust your risk, right, by adjusting the stop loss in relation to your lot size. So we know that one standard lot, right? We know this. One standard lot by 10 pips would equal to $100, right? You have a 10K account, so you know one standard lot by 10 pips would equal $100, which is 1% risk of 10,000, right? Good. Now let's just say you cannot yield a 10 pip stop loss. You don't have the precision to do that. That's fine. I understand. Not everybody's going to be able to do that. It's actually quite difficult because you do need to be very precise and understand candles beyond most people, right? And that's fine. Let's assume now we are to use a 20 pip stop. So instead of 100 here, right? Sorry, 1,000, right? Which is a 10 pip stop. Instead of that, you basically have to use a 200 pip stop loss, or 20 pip stop loss. Sorry, my bad. My apologies. Right? So that's that. Now you realize you're paying attention to what's going on here. Your risk reward has changed from a 20R to a 10R. Right? It has changed from a 20R to a 10R. So what that means is, right? What that means is the reward is going to change. So in order for you to still make the same amount that you would have made here, you need to increase the lot size. But here's the caveat with that now. And by increasing the lot size, you now have a bigger risk. So you're risking more to make more or less the same thing, right? Now, what if we do it the exact opposite way? What if we do it the exact opposite way? What if it is we decide to have the same 10-hour trade, right? But we drop the lot size. So instead of using one standard lot, we decide to use, so instead of using one standard lot like this, you decide to use 0.5% risk, or 0.5 lots, right? So you know that you'll be risking half of $100 or $50, right? Because obviously, if you do the maths, and it should be simple. Sorry, my bad. So you should have the same risk, my bad, right? The same risk, but now you're going to be making less. So now you have 0.50, right? Listen to it, 0.50. It's 20 pip stop loss. And this is going to equal $100, which is the same 1% risk, right? But now, if it goes 200 pips in your favor, it's only $1,000. Whereas before, if it is you did this, 1.00, right? 1.00 by 200 pips, you're getting $2,000 because your risk reward changes. So watch it here now. If I put it back to 10 pip stop, if I put it back to this, you realize the risk reward changes, and thus you're getting double. And it's interesting when you really stop and you think about it, right? My apologies for maybe kind of mixing it up there a little bit. Obviously, I'm doing these calculations on the fly, but the idea remains the same. If you want to increase your lot size, you need to decrease your stop loss size. If you want to if you want to increase your stop loss size, you need to decrease your lot size, because you still want to risk 1% or less than 1%, right? So let me show you something here. Let me show you something. So with this same trade could make so many different amounts of money for different people, because obviously it has a big dependence on the amount of money in the account, the risk parameters, and obviously the risk parameters is the lot size in relation to the stop loss size, right? So let's assume now you have a 10 pip stop, but you don't want to risk 1% of this. You want to risk 0.5% of this. So now you would not be risking, because 1% of 10,000 is $100. You don't want to risk 1%, you want to risk 0.5%. So you have a 10 pip stop loss, a 200 pip take profit, right? And you're risking 0.5%. So you're risking 0.5%, which means you're risking $50. You have to use this lot size, because if you do the calculation, if you pull out your calculator now, you can do it simultaneously with me. You can literally go 0.50, which is your lot size, by 100, which is basically 10 pips, right? This is on your calculator, and you realize you're going to get the answer of $50, right? So you're risking 0.5% of 10,000, which is $50. 1% would be $100, half of 1% would be $50. Now, if the trade goes the same 200 pips in your favor, so now it'll be 0.50, which is your lot size, by 200 or 2,000 on your calculator, which is 200 pips, right, would equal $1,000. So even at 0.5% risk, but a 20-hour trade or a 1 to 20 risk reward trade, you're going to realize that still yields for you $1,000 or 10%. It's all about manipulating the numbers, my friends. But that's the thing. If you don't even begin to understand the relation between your stop loss and your risk percentage, you cannot do this. I'm telling you, you cannot do this, right? You'll just be trading blindly, because everything for you is a mental stop. And like I said, the problem with a mental stop is it requires you to be there mentally at all times. Once you're in a trade, it requires you to be there mentally, right? And I don't know about you, but I get distracted quite easily, right? As I think a lot of human beings do, especially in this era. I get distracted quite easily, right? And even if it is you thinking to yourself, well, no, I don't get distracted. What about the time that you do get distracted and you don't have something to secure your risk? This is why you're going to realize that all of the time you feel like you're doing good, you feel like you're always doing good, right? You're always in control and you're always going to have really good risk reward and blah, 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 blah. What about the time when you don't? That is the problem. You see, trading is not about, being able to make money consistently or being able to make big returns quickly or anything like that. It is about making sure that the times when you do not get those returns, that you're still in control. It is about the times when you realize that things not necessarily going in your favor, that you remain in control. And that is what it is, because it's not about creation, it is about preservation first. Only when you know that you can preserve the account, then you can begin to create more for yourself. It is always about survival first and then thriving. If you're blowing accounts quickly and rapidly and consistently, you shouldn't be focused on trying to make money. You should be focused on trying to preserve the money that you have. Only when you can preserve the money that you have on a consistent basis, then you can start to figure out, how can I build on top of that? And that is the mistake that a lot of people make. The mental stop loss is a big thing. It has a big caveat with it, because it requires a lot of human beings. Every one of you who use mental stop losses, it requires you to always be there. And like I said, that is not a very fair thing to ask of a human being. Maybe if you are a computer and you're always there, because you have an algorithm to always make sure that you're there regardless of what is going on around you. Ignore everything around you and always be there present on the chart. That's fine. Maybe that's the case, but that's the thing. As a human being, there will always be distractions, and a mental stop loss requires you to never get distracted. Once you're in a trade, you cannot be distracted. You understand? Nobody can call you to tell you that, hey, God forbid, you should hear this, but your mother is in an ambulance, she just got in an accident. God forbid you should have to hear that. But I'm telling you, if you are in a trade and you hear something like that, somebody call you and, hey, bro, sis, your mom just got in an accident, your dad just got in an accident, you need to come down now. You completely disregard any trade that you're in. I don't care who you are. I want you to be honest. If you hear something like that, you are not going to be there mentally to close that trade, whether or not it is winning or losing. Because now you're studying your parents. Hopefully you love your parents, right? But I digress. And that's the thing. There are big caveats with, if you get distracted, there's nothing that could really save you. And before you know it, the account is gone. And, for what? The same money that you could have probably preserved to withdraw to maybe see about your medical bills or your parents' medical bills, should they have to, should they go into, get into some kind of accident. God forbid. I want to make that clear. I hope that should never happen to you, and I should hope that you never have to hear that. But I'm using it as an example because these things happen. So the same money that you could have preserved, withdraw all from the account to pay for their medical bills, or even let's just say, even your own. Something is to happen to you to pay for your medical bills. It's gone because you've been distracted and you wasn't preserving the account. These are things. And if you realize, this have nothing to do with technical analysis, This have to do with risk management and psychological control, emotional control. Being a trader requires you to be in control almost at all times. But that's the thing. You're not going to always be in control. So when you're not in control, your risk management now should kick in. It's like prerequisites or co-requisites. You understand? And if you can't do that, if I'm being honest with you, if you can't do that and you realize that you're leaving your risk open-ended, well, sorry to say, but you may think that you're doing good now, but it's only a matter of time for you. Realistically, it's only a matter of time till something happens and the account it goes to naught. And I know this because I used to be like that until I started to use a stop loss. By no means am I saying you should use a 10 pip stop or 20 pip stop. You use what is comfortable to you. But take my stupid advice. Use a stop loss.